6 years later, the millionaire sees his former bride at a wedding. The boy beside her stuns him the moment Ethan Cole stepped into the grand hall of the Maplewood Hotel. Something inside him stopped. He had returned to his hometown for the first time in 6 long years, intending to attend the wedding, offer a handshake, and disappear quietly. But the second he saw her, every intention shattered. Clara Evans. She stood near the center of the hall beneath a cascade of crystal light, guiding staff, adjusting decorations, and offering warm smiles that no longer reach her eyes. She looked composed, focused, and confident, but Ethan recognized the subtle tension in her shoulders. He knew it well. He had once known everything about her. 6 years had passed, yet the sight of her still hit him like a punch to the chest. And then he noticed the boy beside her. A boy no older than 5. A boy with dark hair, soft features, and warm amber eyes. Eyes that mirrored Ethan's perfectly. Before we begin this story, I would like to ask a small favor from you. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us bring more cinematic stories like this one to life. Thank you so much. Now, let us return to our main character. Ethan remained frozen near the entrance, absorbing the scene with a strange mix of disbelief and recognition. The noise of the wedding preparations faded into a dull, distant hum. He had built a massive business empire since the day Clara walked out of his life, becoming a self-made millionaire known for his precision, intelligence, and control. But nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment. Clara still had her hand on the boy's shoulder as she knelt to fix the small collar of his dress shirt. The child giggled softly when she brushed a stray hair from his forehead. The simplicity of the moment twisted something inside Ethan. He could not explain the force pulling him toward the child, but it was immediate and powerful. He tried to dismiss it. He tried to breathe. He tried to steady himself. But the resemblance was undeniable. The boy's eyes, his hair, the curve of his jaw, even the tiny birthmark near his ear, the very same birthmark that Ethan had carried since birth. Ethan's pulse quickened. He knew it was impossible. Clara had left without warning. She had vanished overnight with no note, no explanation, no chance for closure. She had made sure their connection ended abruptly, coldly, permanently. At least, that was what he had believed. Now she was here, at a wedding, with a child who looked unsettlingly familiar. As Ethan stepped further into the hall, Clara finally turned. Her gaze collided with his, and the color drained from her face. For a moment, she did not breathe. She rose slowly, pulling the boy gently behind her, as if shielding him from something unknown. Ethan did not move any closer. He simply held her stare. The weight between them felt heavy, sharp, and unfinished. After several seconds, Clara whispered, "Ethan, you came." Her voice was soft, cautious, and trembling. Ethan nodded once. "I was invited." The space between them thickened with 1,000 questions neither of them dared to ask. From across the hall, Paul waved excitedly for Ethan while carrying a stack of seating cards. He hurried over, completely unaware of the tension between them. "Ethan, there you are. Clara has been helping us all morning. And this must be her son." Her son. The word struck Ethan with unexpected force. The boy offered a shy smile. "Hello." Ethan could barely form a response. His breath felt trapped in his throat. Clara rested a hand on the child's small shoulder. "This is Liam." Liam looked up at Ethan with wide amber eyes, curious and calm. And Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. Something was wrong. Or perhaps something long hidden was finally revealing itself. Either way, the night was far from ordinary, and it was only just beginning. For several seconds after hearing Liam's name, Ethan remained silent. The wedding hall buzzed around him, but none of it reached his mind. His focus stayed locked on the small boy who looked up at him with a curious calmness that felt strangely familiar. Liam had that unmistakable amber glow in his eyes, the same gentle warmth Ethan had inherited from his mother. It shook him more than he wanted to admit. Clara shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension building in Ethan's expression. She gently guided Liam behind her once more, as if creating a subtle barrier between the two of them. Ethan noticed it, and for the first time in years, something sharp, An old flickered inside him. Clara whispered, "Ethan, this is not the time," but before she could finish, Paul, the groom, laughed lightly and clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "Come on, do not scare the kid. He meets new people all the time." Clara's jaw tightened, but she forced a polite smile. Ethan studied the way she held herself, rigid, careful, on edge. It was the opposite of the confident and poised woman he remembered. Something had changed in her, something deeper than time. Paul continued talking, but Ethan barely registered the words. He kept watching Clara carefully. Her eyes refused to meet his again. She busied her hands with decorations that did not need adjusting. Her breaths seemed shallow. Her fingers trembled slightly. Clara was afraid, and that alone told Ethan more than she realized. Paul shifted topics with cheerful excitement. Clara practically saved this wedding. The florist was late, the lighting crew messed up, and the ring bearer lost his tiny suit. She handled everything. She always does, Ethan replied quietly. Clara closed her eyes for a moment when she heard the familiar tone in his voice, a tone that still carried memories she had fought to bury. Liam tugged at her dress. "Mom, can I go with Aunt Grace? She said she has candy." Clara knelt down and brushed his hair gently. "Yes, sweetheart. Stay where I can see you." As Liam ran toward a nearby bridesmaid, Ethan watched him go. Every movement the boy made pulled a thread inside Ethan tighter. The way Liam tilted his head when listening, the small furrow between his eyebrows, even the shape of his smile. It was as if Ethan was looking at a smaller, softer reflection of himself. Clara noticed his prolonged stare and stepped closer, her voice low and tense. "Please stop looking at him like that." "Like what?" Ethan asked. "Like you already know the answer." Ethan's heartbeat thudded hard at his chest. "I do not know anything." "Not yet." Clara looked away. "Ethan, please." 6 years, Clara, he said. 6 years with no explanation. "And now there is a child who—" "Stop," she whispered sharply. Her voice cracked, revealing a layer of panic beneath her restraint. She swallowed hard and glanced toward the corridor leading to the service hallway. "This is not the place. We cannot do this here." Ethan lowered his voice. Then when Clara hesitated, her gaze drifted to Liam, who was happily chatting with the bridesmaid. Her face softened, then tightened again with painful conflict. After a long, shaky breath, she answered quietly, "Later tonight. Back garden walkway." After the ceremony, Ethan did not blink. "You will not disappear this time?" Clara looked wounded. "I never wanted to disappear. I just had no choice." The words sliced through the space between them, leaving more questions than answers. Before Ethan could respond, Paul called Clara's name from across the hall, asking for help with the seating chart. She stepped back and lifted her chin, fighting to regain control. "We will talk later," she whispered. "I promise." And for the first time that night, Ethan believed her, not because of her tone, but because of the fear she tried so hard to hide. Clara walked away quickly, almost too quickly. As she joined the bridal party, Ethan watched her closely. There was something fragile in her movements, something burdened, something that made his chest feel unbearably tight. He turned his gaze toward Liam once more. The child laughed at something the bridesmaid said, unaware of the storm building across the room. And Ethan knew with absolute certainty that the truth waiting tonight would change everything. He could feel it. The past was no longer buried. It was rising, and he was not ready for what it might reveal. The ceremony preparations continued around Ethan, but he barely noticed the movement of guests, florists, or staff. His attention stayed divided between Clara, who tried to blend into her work, and Liam, who seemed unaware of the silent war unfolding around him. Ethan could not shake the feeling that every second he spent in this hall tightened a rope around his chest. He watched Clara speak with the lighting crew, adjusting angles and confirming final details. She moved with skill and certainty, but every time she glanced at Liam, her expression changed. A softness settled over her features, the same look she once had when she loved Ethan fiercely and without reservation. The memory stung more than he expected. When Clara noticed Ethan watching again, she tensed and quickly looked away. A small figure ran past the edge of the hall, shoes tapping softly against the floor. Ethan did not turn right away, but the movement stayed with him. Ethan exhaled slowly. He had come to the wedding intending to keep a distance from the past, but the past had stepped directly in front of him with amber eyes and a birthmark he could not ignore. From the far side of the room, Paul called out to Ethan, asking for help with the seating chart. He crossed the floor quickly, unaware he had interrupted a tense exchange. "Ethan, can you give me a second opinion on the seating order? Clara already checked it, but I like to double-check everything." Ethan forced a nod and followed him a few steps away. But even as Paul spoke through various placements, Ethan's focus wandered. His responses were automatic, almost inattentive. Paul noticed. "You keep looking at Clara," he said quietly. Ethan stopped. "Do you blame me?" Paul studied him for a moment. "I have known Clara for years. She never talks about the past, but when she does, there's always something heavy behind it." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Heavy enough to disappear for 6 years?" Paul lowered his voice. "Heavy enough that she has never let anyone close since then." That caught Ethan's attention. Paul continued. "She works constantly. She takes care of Liam. She avoids anything that feels like a step toward her own life. I do not know what happened between you two, but whatever it was, she is still carrying it." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Is she all right?" Paul hesitated. "She tries to be." The vagueness irritated Ethan, but before he could push further, Liam appeared again. The boy tugged at Paul's pant leg with a hopeful smile. "Can I go see the chocolate fountain now?" Paul laughed softly. "In a bit. They're still setting up." Liam puffed his cheeks in disappointment, then looked up at Ethan. His eyes held a softness that felt too familiar, almost painfully so. Liam studied Ethan the way a child studies someone who feels important without knowing why. Ethan knelt slightly, meeting his gaze. "Are you having fun?" Liam nodded. "Yes, but my mom looks worried. She keeps checking the door." The comment struck Ethan sharply. He glanced toward Clara, who quickly looked away once more as if she had been caught doing something she should not. "Does she do that often?" Ethan asked gently. Liam shrugged. "Sometimes. She's not like loud noises. And she always looks at the exits. I do not know why." Ethan's breath deepened. Anxiety? Fear? Or something else entirely? Before he could ask more, Clara rushed over, her steps quick and urgent. "Liam, sweetheart, come here. I need to talk to you." Her voice was steady, but Ethan noticed the tremor beneath it. Liam obeyed immediately, though he cast one more curious glance at Ethan before walking away. Clara knelt beside her son and whispered something in his ear. The boy nodded, then jogged toward a table filled with wedding favors. Ethan approached cautiously. "Clara." She stood slowly, her expression guarded. "Ethan, please. Not now. You promised we would talk tonight." "And we will," she said firmly. "But until then, you need to stop pushing." "I'm not pushing. I'm trying to understand." Clara closed her eyes briefly, fighting a wave of emotion. When she opened them, her voice was almost a whisper. "Understanding the truth will not make it easier." Ethan felt the weight of those words settle inside him. Her fear, her secrecy, her sudden tension anytime he got near Liam. Something had happened 6 years ago, something darker than he imagined. Before he could respond, a staff member called Clara's name urgently, asking for help with a broken table arrangement. She stepped away, leaving Ethan standing alone once again. But one truth had already settled in his mind. Clara was not hiding out of cruelty. She was hiding out of fear. And whatever she feared, he was determined to uncover it. Tonight, no matter what waited for him. The ceremony began as the last rays of sunlight streamed through the tall windows, turning the Maplewood Hotel hall into a warm haze of gold. Guests found their seats, conversations softened, and the music shifted into something elegant and slow. But Ethan Cole could not focus on any of it. His gaze stayed fixed on Clara, who moved quickly along the aisle, adjusting last-minute details with a trembling intensity she tried to hide. Liam sat in the second row with a small box of rose petals resting on his lap. He swung his legs back and forth as he watched the bridesmaids line up. Every few seconds he glanced behind him, looking for his mother. When his eyes drifted toward Ethan, they lingered a little too long, as if some quiet instinct pulled him there. Ethan felt it every time, a pull he could not explain. A connection he did not want to believe, but could no longer ignore. He stood near the back of the hall, hands clasped tightly. His mind replayed every detail. The birthmark, the eyes, the timing, Clara's fear, her secrecy. Each piece fell into place with alarming accuracy. And the more he tried to deny the possibility, the more it grew undeniable. 6 years. She left 6 years ago. Liam looked 5. The math cut deeper than he expected. Clara finally took her place behind the floral arch, giving a nod to the officiant. Her breaths appeared shaky, her hands twisting the hem of her clipboard. She looked toward Liam once more, her eyes soft, protective, and terrified all at once. Ethan studied her expression closely. This was not the face of a woman who had simply chosen to leave him. This was the face of someone who had been cornered, forced, and haunted ever since. Just as the bride began walking down the aisle, Ethan caught sight of a subtle sway above the ceremony platform. A metal lighting beam suspended by cables shifted slightly, making a faint groaning sound that did not belong in a calm wedding hall. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Something was off. No one else seemed to notice. Guests focused on the bride. Bridesmaids smiled. The groom's eyes filled with emotion. Clara stood frozen, forcing herself to remain still even as her instincts pushed her to glance upward. The beam tilted again, then again. A single bolt loosened, almost imperceptibly. A child's voice broke the moment. Liam stood from his seat, clutching a handful of petals. He stepped into the aisle, ready to sprinkle them ahead of the bride, unaware he had wandered directly beneath the unstable beam. Ethan's heart seized. Another metallic groan echoed above the guests. Time fractured. The bride gasped softly. A bridesmaid looked up. Clara's eyes widened, horror flooding her face. Ethan moved. He surged forward with a speed he did not know he possessed. Chairs scraped behind him as he lunged into the aisle. The beam snapped free with a violent crack, swinging downward like a massive pendulum of steel. Liam looked up, his innocent eyes widening. Ethan reached him, grabbing the boy tightly and pulling him to the floor just as the beam crashed onto the aisle with explosive force. Shattered glass scattered across the floor. Guests screamed. The music died instantly. Clara raced toward them, her voice breaking with panic. Liam. Ethan shielded the boy with his body until the dust settled. When he finally lifted himself slightly, he checked Liam carefully. The child trembled but appeared unharmed. His hands clung to Ethan's shirt, gripping tightly. Clara dropped to her knees beside them, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Sweetheart, are you hurt? Look at me." Liam whimpered but nodded. "I am okay." Clara reached for him, but Liam refused to release Ethan completely. He kept one hand on Ethan's arm, as if instinctively seeking safety. Ethan felt a jolt inside him. A connection, a truth pushing closer. Clara looked at Ethan with a mixture of gratitude, fear, and something deeper that she had tried to bury for years. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan did not answer. His mind was spinning. He looked at Liam again, at the eyes, at the birthmark, at the way the boy clung to him without hesitation. And a realization settled in his chest like a storm finding its center. This was no coincidence. This was no accident. This was truth pressing its way to the surface. And Clara knew it. She knew he knew it, and she could not hide from it much longer. The hall remained in chaos long after the beam hit the floor. Staff hurried to clear the debris. Guests murmured anxiously, and the bride tried to calm trembling bridesmaids. But none of it mattered to Ethan. His focus stayed on the small boy who still clung to his sleeve, and the woman kneeling beside him with fear still burning in her eyes. Clara held Liam's face gently, checking for any sign of injury. When she realized he was truly unharmed, her shoulders collapsed with relief. Her hands trembled as she brushed away a piece of dust from her son's cheek. Liam leaned in her touch, but did not let go of Ethan's arm completely. That tiny act struck Ethan more deeply than he expected. Paul hurried over from the entrance, having heard the crash and shouts from across the hall. "Is he all right? Clara, is he hurt?" Clara shook her head. "He is fine." Ethan got to him in time. Paul looked at Ethan, all crossing his face. That was incredible. You moved before anyone else even realized what was happening. Ethan barely heard the compliment. His pulse still pounded in his ears from the jolt of adrenaline. I just reacted, he said quietly. But deep down, he knew it was not merely instinct. It had felt like something older, something stronger, something protective rising within him. Clara stood slowly, pulling Liam close. The child held her hand, but his eyes drifted toward Ethan again. His gaze was steady, curious, and strangely trusting. Ethan forced himself to step back, though every part of him felt anchored to the boy. You should get him checked by a doctor, just to be safe. Clara nodded, swallowing hard. I will. Thank you, Ethan. Her voice cracked on his name. She looked away quickly, as if afraid of revealing too much. Paul placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You should step outside for a moment. Get some air. That was a close call. Ethan nodded slowly and stepped back toward the side balcony, needing distance from the noise and from the rising questions that threatened to overwhelm him. Outside, the evening air carried the scent of roses from the nearby garden. Ethan gripped the balcony railing tightly, replaying the moment again. The falling beam, Liam's frightened eyes, and the way the child had instinctively reached for him afterward. He had never reacted like that for a stranger's child, never moved that fast, never felt that depth of fear. Something inside him pulled sharply, urging him toward a truth he had tried to deny since the moment he saw Liam. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Paul stepped onto the balcony, joining him quietly. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Paul said, Liam never warms up to strangers. He is shy, cautious, always stays close to Clara. Ethan's grip on the railing tightened. But he held on to me. Yes, Paul said softly. He did. The implication hung between them. Ethan turned slightly. Paul, tell me the truth. Has Clara ever mentioned me? Even once. Paul looked toward the garden lights reflected in the glass doors. Not directly, but I have seen her stare at the door during events like this, as if waiting for someone who never arrives. And I have seen her tense when your name is mentioned, even by accident. Ethan felt his breath shorten. Why did she leave without a word? Paul hesitated. It was not my place to ask. All I know is that whatever happened 6 years ago, it still affects her. She is not afraid of you. She is afraid of something tied to you. The words hit Ethan cold. Afraid of something tied to him, not of him. Ethan stared into the distance, letting the thoughts settle. And the boy? Does he know anything? Paul shook his head. He only knows his mother. She protects him fiercely, sometimes too fiercely. Ethan understood. Clara's fear was not random. It had roots, deep ones. Paul continued. Clara said she would talk to you tonight. Let her. She has carried something heavy for a long time. Ethan nodded slowly. I will listen. Paul gave him a steady look. Prepare yourself. For what? Ethan asked. For the truth, Paul replied. And the truth may hurt more than you expect. Ethan turned back toward the glowing hall, his pulse steadying with resolve. Tonight, he would get answers, and nothing would stop him from hearing them. The wedding resumed more cautiously after the accident, with staff ensuring every piece of equipment was reinforced. Guests settled into their seats again, though a nervous tension lingered in the air. Ethan returned inside once he had steadied his breath, but his senses were sharper now, more alert. Clara and Liam were no longer just people from his past. They were the center of something he needed to understand. He spotted Clara standing near a corner table, holding a cup of water with both hands. Her shoulders were tight, her gaze distant. She looked as if she were bracing herself for a storm she knew she could not avoid. Ethan approached slowly. Is he all right? Clara looked up, startled, then nodded. Yes. The staff checked him again. He is shaken, but he is fine. There was a long pause. Clara's eyes flicked sideways, searching for Liam. The boy sat with a group of bridesmaids, playing with the empty ring box, unaware of the heaviness gathering between the adults. Ethan followed her gaze. He is strong. Clara's voice softened. He has had no choice. That answer made Ethan's chest tighten. He lowered his voice. Clara, we are no longer avoiding this. We talked tonight. Her fingers clenched around the cup. I said I would. Ethan studied her expression. She was not simply nervous. She looked genuinely afraid of the conversation waiting for them. "What are you afraid of telling me?" Clara stepped back slightly. "Ethan, please." "Not here." The plea was quiet, but the desperation behind it was unmistakable. The music shifted as the ceremony transitioned into the reception. Guests began moving toward the dining hall. Candlelit tables waited with polished silverware and floral centerpieces. The soft glow of lantern lights cast warm patterns across the hardwood floor. Clara exhaled shakily. "I need to take Liam to wash his hands. He has frosting everywhere." Ethan nodded, but followed discreetly as she walked toward the hallway. Clara noticed and stopped. "Ethan, let me have 5 minutes with him. That is all I ask." He hesitated, then agreed. 5 minutes. She guided Liam toward the restroom, whispering reassurances. When the door closed behind them, Ethan leaned against the wall, mind racing. Every sign pointed toward the same answer. But he needed proof. He needed Clara to speak it aloud. A staff member hurried over and told Ethan that Paul needed to speak with him urgently. Ethan found Paul near the service door, speaking in low tones with the engineer. Ethan's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" "The cable was cut." Ethan straightened immediately. "Cut? As in intentionally?" Paul nodded slowly. "Yes." The technician said it was a clean slice. Not wear and tear. Not a malfunction. A cold heaviness settled in Ethan's chest. Who would sabotage a wedding ceremony? Paul glanced toward the restroom where Clara and Liam were. That is the unnerving part. The beam that fell was not positioned over the bride or groom. It was positioned over the aisle, over the exact spot Liam walked into. Ethan's heartbeat hammered. "You cannot be suggesting—" "I am not suggesting anything," Paul said carefully. "But someone wanted something to happen in that aisle. It was not meant for the bride." Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him. His instincts surged with urgency. Clara needs to know this immediately. Paul placed a hand on his arm. "Be careful how you tell her. She is already shaken. And if someone truly wanted to hurt her child, she may already know more than she has admitted." The restroom door opened. Clara emerged with Liam in her arms, drying his little hands with a paper towel. Her expression softened when she saw the boy smile. But when her gaze lifted to meet Ethan's, her face paled instantly. She could see the change in his demeanor, the shift in his eyes, the storm behind them. "What happened?" she asked quietly. Ethan stepped forward. "Clara, we need to talk now. Not later. Not after the reception. Now." She tightened her hold on Liam. "Ethan, please, no," he said firmly. "This is about him." Clara froze. Fear flashed across her eyes like lightning. Ethan continued, voice steady but intense. "That beam did not fall by accident. Someone cut the cable." Clara's breath left her body in a sharp gasp. She clutched Liam closer, her entire posture snapping into one of instinctive protection. Ethan watched the terror spread through her features, and he realized with absolute certainty Clara knew exactly why someone would try to hurt her son. And the truth she had been hiding for 6 years was darker than he had ever imagined. Clara's grip tightened around Liam the moment Ethan told her the cable had been cut. Her entire body stiffened, and for a breath, she looked unable to speak. The noise of the reception room faded behind them as if the world were pulling away, leaving only the three of them in a shrinking circle of fear. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Clara, look at me. You know something. Tell me what it is." She swallowed hard, eyes darting around the hallway as though expecting someone to appear at any second. Liam sensed the fear and buried his face into her shoulder. Clara pulled him close, her voice barely steady. "Not here. Please." "Then where?" Ethan pressed. Clara hesitated before whispering, "The back garden walkway. 10 minutes." Ethan nodded. "I will be there." She walked away quickly with Liam in her arms, whispering soft reassurances to him. Ethan watched them disappear through the far doors, unease building inside him like a rising tide. He did not know who would want to harm a child, nor why Liam would be the target. But Clara's reaction told him one thing with painful clarity. She had been living with fear for a long time. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Ethan paced the edge of the garden where lanterns glowed along the path. The night was quiet, broken only by the distant hum of music from the reception hall. He kept scanning the shadows, not trusting the calmness settling over the property. At last, Clara appeared. She walked slowly, her arms around Liam, who looked tired and confused. She positioned him on a nearby bench, and he curled against her side. Clara ran a hand over his hair, steadying herself before finally meeting Ethan's eyes. Her voice trembled. "Ethan, you need to promise me something before I say anything." "What promise?" he asked cautiously. "That whatever happens next, Liam stays safe. No matter what you think of me, no matter what you feel after hearing the truth. You protect him." Ethan stepped closer, his tone firm. "Clara, I would protect him even if I did not know the truth. But I need that truth now." Clara took a long breath. The lantern light flickered across her face, revealing a pain she had carried for years. 6 years ago, I found out I was pregnant. The world seemed to still. Ethan's breath caught. "Pregnant?" "Yes." Her voice shook. "With your child." Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him, everything inside him tightening. "Clara, why did you not tell me? Why did you run?" Clara shut her eyes, tears forming. "Because someone warned me. Someone came to my apartment the night before I planned to tell you. He knew everything about you, about me, about our relationship. He said if I stayed with you, our child would be taken from me the moment he was born." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Taken? By who?" Clara shook her head desperately. "I never learned his name. He wore a mask, threatened me, and showed me documents proving he worked for someone powerful. He said the child of a rising billionaire would be a target. He said I had to disappear or lose Liam forever." Ethan stared at her in disbelief and horror. "You believed him?" "I had no choice, Ethan. He knew things only someone close to you could know. He knew your business projections, your upcoming investors, even the exact day you planned to propose to me." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. Someone close to him, someone he trusted. Clara continued with a trembling breath. "I left because I thought it was the only way to keep Liam safe. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since. Every new neighborhood, every new job, every crowded place. I always expect someone to come for him." Ethan knelt in front of her, voice low but steady. "Clara, whoever threatened you will not touch him. I will not allow it." Clara wiped her tears. "You do not understand, Ethan. Today was the first time in 6 years that someone actually tried to hurt him." Ethan stood slowly, fury and fear twisting inside him. "Then this ends tonight. No more running. No more hiding. You should have come to me, Clara. You should have trusted me." Clara looked devastated. "I wanted to, but fear won." Ethan turned his gaze toward the dark edges of the garden, jaw tightening. "Then whoever did this," he said quietly, "is coming for all of us. And I will be ready." Ethan stood still for several seconds, letting Clara's confession settle into the cold night air. The soft glow of the lanterns flickered against the surrounding hedges, casting long shadows across the garden path. Liam leaned quietly against Clara's side, unaware of the weight of the conversation happening around him. Ethan forced himself to breathe evenly, but inside, something sharp and powerful was shifting. "So you've been running for 6 years," Ethan said quietly. "Because of a threat linked to my world." Clara nodded, wiping her tears with a trembling hand. "I never stopped. Every time we settled in a new town, something would remind me to stay alert. A strange car parked outside too long, someone asking too many questions, an envelope with no return address left on my doorstep. Nothing direct, nothing I could prove, just enough to keep me terrified." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you went through all of that alone?" Clara hesitated. "I did not want Liam anywhere near the dangers connected to your rise. I saw how quickly you were moving in the business world. I knew powerful people surrounded you. I did not know who could be trusted." Ethan absorbed the words slowly. "You should have told me, Clara. I could have protected both of you." She shook her head. "I could not risk it. If that man was working for someone close to you, someone who had access to your life, then telling you would have put Liam in even greater danger." Ethan stepped closer. "You think someone in my inner circle ordered that threat?" "I think someone wanted control," Clara said. "And they believe a child tied to you could be used against you." The idea hit Ethan like a blow. He had spent years building his empire with precision and loyalty. To imagine someone within his world capable of threatening his child, made his hands curl into fists. A sudden rustling from the far hedge snapped both of their heads around. Clara pulled Liam closer protectively. Ethan quickly positioned himself between them and the noise, scanning the shadows. After a few tense moments, a stray cat darted out and ran across the path. Clara exhaled shakily, but Ethan did not relax. Someone had cut that cable. That was real, and whoever had done it was still out there. Ethan lowered his voice. Clara, has anyone approached you recently? Anyone unusual? Clara hesitated before answering. Last week, there was a man in a black sedan parked near Liam's school. He never got out, but he watched. I could feel his eyes on me when I walked Liam inside. Did you report it? No, she whispered, because he drove away before I could do anything, and I did not want to draw attention. Ethan shook his head slowly, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. This is not a coincidence, Clara. Someone has been tracking you, tracking Liam, and today they made their first move. Clara looked down at her son, running a gentle hand through his hair. I knew coming here tonight was risky, but Paul needed help at the wedding, and I thought maybe after all these years, we were safe for one night. Ethan knelt beside Liam and brushed a fallen petal from the boy's sleeve. Liam looked up at him with sleepy amber eyes, trusting and unguarded. The sight nearly broke him. He whispered, I will not let anything happen to you. Liam blinked softly, leaning into Clara, unaware of the promise Ethan had just carved into stone. Clara watched Ethan with a mixture of relief and fear. What are you going to do? Ethan stood slowly, his expression hardening with a clarity he had not felt in years. I will find out who threatened you, who cut that cable, who has been following you for 6 years. I will uncover every name, every motive, every connection. Clara shook her head weakly. Ethan, you do not know how dangerous that man was. Ethan held her gaze. And he does not know what I become when someone threatens what is mine. Clara froze at the words. Ethan continued, voice steady and unwavering. Tomorrow morning, both of you come with me to the city. I will have my security team protect you until I identify who is behind this. Clara hesitated, fear warring with exhaustion. Leaving will draw attention. Staying will get you killed, Ethan said firmly. Clara looked at the garden path, fighting tears. I left you to keep him safe. And now, Ethan replied softly, you do not have to run alone. Clara slowly reached for Ethan's hand, just for a second, before pulling back. If we go with you, everything changes. Ethan nodded once. It already has. And in that quiet moment, all three of their lives shifted toward a future none of them could escape. The night deepened around the Maplewood Hotel, wrapping the garden in a quiet chill. Clara held Liam close as Ethan stood just a few steps from them, his posture steady, his eyes burning with determination. The truth had finally emerged after 6 long years, but it left behind a storm that none of them were ready for. Still, for the first time, they were facing it together. Liam yawned softly against Clara's shoulder, unaware of the danger surrounding him. Clara kissed the top of his head, her hand brushing through his hair with a tenderness born from years of fear and fierce protection. When she lifted her gaze to Ethan, something had changed. The panic from earlier had softened into a fragile trust. What happens now? She asked quietly. Ethan walked closer, his voice calm and sure. Tomorrow morning, I will take both of you back with me. You will stay in my penthouse until I find out who is responsible. My security team will not let anyone near you. Clara's eyes flickered with hesitation. Ethan, your world is different now. Bigger, more exposed. If someone went through the trouble of threatening me 6 years ago, imagine what they will do now that Liam is older. Ethan shook his head, which is exactly why I will not let you out of my sight. Clara looked down at Liam, who had drifted into a light sleep. The boy rested peacefully, trusting her completely. She tightened her arms around him. He deserves safety, Ethan. Stability. A life where he does not have to look over his shoulder. And he will have that, Ethan said. I promise you. Clara's voice trembled. I kept him hidden for so long. I am terrified of what happens once his last name becomes known. Ethan's expression hardened, not with anger toward her, but with fury at the faceless threat in the shadows. If someone wants to take advantage of my success, they will have to go through me first. And I do not lose. Clara exhaled shakily, her defenses slowly unraveling. For years she had carried the burden alone, fearing every knock on the door, every stranger in a crowd. Now, standing beside the man she once loved, she felt a weight lift, just enough to breathe again. Paul appeared at the garden entrance, scanning the scene with worry. When he saw Clara and Liam unharmed, he relaxed slightly. The police arrived, he said quietly. They're checking the broken rig and asking questions. They want to speak with both of you before they leave. Clara stiffened. Ethan, I cannot tell them everything. Not yet. You do not have to, Ethan assured her. Let me handle it. Paul nodded. I figured you would say that. Clara shifted Liam in her arms and whispered, he needs to sleep. I should take him to the quiet room upstairs. I will go with you, Ethan said. She hesitated before nodding. Inside, the wedding reception had resumed in a cautious, subdued atmosphere. Guests whispered about the accident, but did not approach Clara out of respect. Ethan stayed close, scanning every corner, every doorway. Clara noticed the protective stance and felt a strange mixture of comfort and fear. When they reached the quiet room, Ethan opened the door for her. Clara laid Liam gently on the small sofa, covering him with a soft blanket. She lingered over him, brushing her fingers across his cheek. Ethan watched silently before finally speaking. Clara, he is mine, is he not? The question hung between them, heavy with 6 years of silence. Clara turned toward him slowly, her eyes glistening. Yes, he is yours. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the truth he had suspected from the moment he saw Liam. When he opened them again, emotions swirled beneath the surface. Anger for the years lost, sorrow for what Clara endured, and overwhelming protectiveness for the child asleep on the couch. He stepped closer. I will not fail him. Were you? Clara's breath shook. I know. A soft knock sounded at the door. It was Paul again. Ethan, the police need a statement. They want to ask if you saw anyone near the rig earlier. Ethan gave a firm nod. Tell them I am coming. Paul stepped back into the hallway. Before following him, Ethan turned to Clara once more. Tonight changed everything, but it is not the end of our story. Clara held his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. Then what is it? Ethan glanced at Liam, then at her. The beginning. He left the room to face the authorities, determined to uncover the truth. Clara stayed behind, watching the man she once loved walk toward danger with the confidence of someone who had something worth protecting. For the first time in 6 years, she no longer felt alone. And in the quiet glow of the room, with her son safe beside her, Clara dared to believe that their fractured past might finally lead to a future none of them expected, but all of them desperately needed.